Good morning and welcome to Atlantic Television Network. It's always a pleasure doing this with you. Thank you for joining us. The program is Atlantic Blowout, and it's a syndicated live program of the network that gets to feature chit-chats and conversations on special interest topics, also news events, and we also talk about stories through our correspondence report, expert opinion, and stakeholders analysis. Today we'll be looking at a story from the End Bad Governance Nigeria protest, where for developing stories now, where the federal government blocks 83 billion naira funds and arrests collaborators of that protest. And then we'll take a story from Abia State, government to recover public schools from individuals and also groups. And then another story from Ondo State, Akoko community women protest half naked against insecurity. This is a very pathetic one, but we hope that we'll give you details of that story as we delve into it. But then we'll take a story from National Assembly, federal government committed to tackling hunger. Reps. From the economy, NNPCL fails to meet its PH refinery deadline again for the 6th time, according to reports. And then we'll take a story from telecommunications. NCC kicks as operators threaten service outage. We'll let you know who our guest is after this break. Please stay right here with us. Good to know you're still with us. We will begin right now by introducing our guest who's already seated in the studio. We have with us Daima Emmanuel George. He's an economist and public affairs analyst. Good morning, Daima.
Good morning to you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's go straight to it. We have reports that from the day 2 of the peaceful protest in Ughelli North local government area of Delta State took another twist as policemen stationed at the Otwodo axis of the East-West Road allegedly shot and injured a yet-to-be-identified protester in Ughelli North local government area of Delta State. And the shooting of the protester triggered others who took to the burning of tires and pelting officials of the local government with sachet water. These were some of the things that happened during the protest. But we're looking at the developing stories now. Can we go back to the heading of the story? We're looking at the developing stories, things that have happened ever since the protest ended. Ever since the protest ended, what are some of the things that we have seen as a country? What are some of the things that the protesters asked for that have been, adjusted or that have been addressed by the federal government? And we heard reports of the meeting, talking about the meeting now, where it was stated that FG blocks 83 billion naira, that the federal government has traced at least 83 billion naira in cryptocurrency and fiat money channeled towards the recent nationwide protests. So they include $50 million of cryptocurrency, $38 million of which were blocked in 4 cryptocurrency wallets, and $4 billion contributed by various political actors in Abuja, Kano, Kaduna, and Katsina. And this was part of the presentation by the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, as the inaugural meeting of the Council of State convened by President Bola Tinubu at the Aso Rock Villa in Abuja. Now, the Council of State convened by the Council of State meeting, according to multiple reports and sources with knowledge of Tuesday's meeting proceedings, Ribadu, who presented on the topic the nationwide protest as it affects national security, also got to reveal that an European has been identified as the mastermind of the proliferation of the foreign flags that were seen during the protest and will soon be declared wanted by the police. One of the sources who spoke on condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to speak on the matter disclosed that local conspirators traced the capital city Abuja, Kaduna, and Kano have been arrested. And the Council of State meeting on Tuesday reports that President Bola Tinubu convened the Council of State meeting to discuss other matters, like the recent End Bad Governance protest, the national security, the economy, and food security. Back to the heading of that story now, where we are looking at, in summary now, from all of this that have been discussed, from the End Bad Governance protest, where it states that federal government has blocked 83 billion naira protest funds and arrested political collaborators. There were talks about this earlier. Let's get your thoughts.
Well, one thing that is very fundamental is that people have a right to peaceful protests. And that is part of democracy. And in every democratic country in the world, you see peaceful protests, or people exercise their constitutional rights to demand or make demand from the government. Because if democracy is government for the people, by the people, the voice of the people must be respected and must be heard. And so there's nothing wrong for Nigerians to peacefully protest. Underline, when I emphasize on the word peaceful, I am not in support of chaotic or disorderliness, because we must have the rule of law in the society. Now, as regards the question of the National Security Advisor and the government blocking funds that has been money or financing of the protests from outside the country, well, that's their responsibility to do, but they should also exercise such speed in blocking channels of corruption in the country. And they should also exercise such prompt response in ensuring that the voices of the people is heard. What are Nigerians asking for? Good governance. Is that too much to ask in a 21st century society? Many Nigerians don't have access to clean water, to power supply, to good road. Are these things we should pray for, or these are things we should build for ourselves? Are these things we should delegate to a spirit to do? Why do we have leaders? Leadership is a responsibility to work for the people. And when you are a leader, you have to listen to the people. You are there to work for their interest, right? And so when the people are asking for good governance, they are not out of place. They shouldn't be labeled or given all kind of names as conspirators. Or these are Nigerians. These are the same people that you ask for your votes during election time. And I always say that if a ballot box can get to an interior village, development should get to that village. And the Nigerian youths and the Nigerian young people are asking for opportunities to be created so that they can compete with their peers in other nations of the world. So I see no reason why we should blacklist or label these protesters as unpatriotic citizens. I am not in support of chaos or violence. We always preach peace and advocate for peace. The million-dollar question or the million-naira question is, what steps, concrete steps, have the government taken to ensure that the demand of the protesters are met? We've been hearing a lot about dialogue and dialogue. Where is the dialogue? And who are those involved in the dialogue? What is the National Security Advisor and the National Security Architecture and Leadership putting in place to ensure a smooth communication process between the citizens and the government? Because communication is very fundamental in security. You must communicate to the people. Because first of all, you are there to secure the people. You are there to protect the lives of the citizens of the country. You are responsible to the citizens of Nigeria. You are responsible to the development of Nigeria, because security is essential in development. So
even though it is our right to protest, you don't see anything wrong with the protest being political, like it was alleged earlier by the FCT minister?
The protest will always have political inclination. That's something that is certain. And even most of the people in leadership today that are, labeling these people as political, they also protests. They've also been actively involved in political protests. So it is not out of place for politics to come in. What is politics? That's the first question. If your opponents, political opponents, have seen your leadership lapses or weaknesses, that's an opportunity for them to constructively criticize you. It's part of the political process. It's not out of place, because we are not in a dictatorship. We are in a democracy. And in democracy, there will be different opinions and different school of thoughts and different views. It is your responsibility as a leader to listen to the different views and see what is best for the country.
But now we're hearing that the collaborators of the political collaborators have been apprehended.
Well, that's up to them. While they are apprehending the political collaborators, they should apprehend poverty. Right? The biggest, the hydra-headed monster in our country today is poverty. And poverty is widespread. It's widespread. It has encapsulated into every aspect of our nation, poverty. So we should come together now as a country to apprehend poverty, irrespective of our politics.
So you think it's actually way beyond politics, the protests now?
We are not looking at the big picture. We are not addressing the elephants in the room. The elephant in the room, or the elephant that is right inside the room, is poverty. We are not addressing the core issues. We are just looking at the surface issues, superficial issues. We are not looking at the core challenge and the core problems and the fundamental questions that needs to be asked is poverty. So whether you are from the north or from the east, whether you're from the south or from the west, irrespective of your party, religion, tribe, ethnicity, status, education, whatever, the language you speak, your culture, poverty is a national emergency. And that is what we should come together to address. Because whether you're in Sokoto or you're in Port Harcourt, whether you're in Calabar or you're in Lagos, whether you're in Yobe or you're in Damatru, whether you are living in an island or you are living on the mainland,
you're affected.
You are affected. When you wake up in the morning, you want to put food on your table, kitchen table issues. So everyone have something. We have a unifying factor that should unify us as a country that we should address. We should look at the bone of contention, and we should pick out the bones and stop dancing around the flesh.
But sometimes when we try to address some of these big issues that facing the nation, we always have people turning it into something else. Imagine the young people, or this protest was not just about the young people. I don't like to say the young people. When we talk about the NSAS protest, oh, people would say, oh, the young people stood up. This time we had women, elderly women, we had elderly men, we had different age groups join that protest. It was not just about the young people. So we have people coming up to say no to a particular, should I call it a disease now in the society, coming in and disrupting the process. So it's more like when there is no unity of purpose, there's always that disorderliness and different things coming in to destroy the main goal. This protest was one that a lot of people called for, even while they were talking about it earlier. Even though they came out to say it was political, people supported this protest, and that's why a lot of people came out, because they saw a change, they saw a light at the end of the tunnel. But look at what happened at the end of the day. When do you think we'd ever get it right with fighting the corruption or issues that we have in Nigeria with unity?
There's something that unites us as a country. And what is that unity of purpose? Is that millions of Nigerian children are out of school. Millions of our young people are walking the street jobless, helpless, hopeless, frustrated, dejected, and displaced, economically displaced persons. I know we've heard so much about internally displaced persons. That's what unifies us as a country. That we have a common problems, we have a common challenge, we have common hurdles, we have mountains that we need to surmount. And that's what unifies us as a country. That we should come together and sit down and ask ourselves questions. How do we move this country forward? You know, look at the protests. What the protesters are demanding for, is it not clear? Is it not clear to the government? Is it not clear to all of us? Is it not clear that many of our citizens who are supposed to enjoy the dividends of democracy, many of them are homeless. Many of them are affected by flooding, and they are displaced. And there are no programs, no health programs, no support programs to capture most of these people. We wait until disaster strikes or calamity happens before we start running helter-skelter. That is a symptom of a disorganized system. And over 60 years of independence and democracy, we cannot continue to be doing things like we are still toddlers. You know, imagine a 60-year-old man, or a 65-year-old man, or a 66-year-old man who still have a sense of purpose and direction. You're going to look at that man and say he's a failure. Because how many years does he have left in his lifetime to get it right? So we need to get it right, for not just for us. I do say, not just for us, but for the children coming up.
Right.
You know, when we are kids, we do say, we do hear a lot of our elders tell us that, you know, you guys are the leaders of tomorrow. We are gradually becoming adults. And I do tell my friends that, see, we will keep telling ourselves these things until one day our children will ask us, but Dad, why? What did you do? Right? What did you contribute to this country?
As the leader.
Were you silent? So when I'm talking about leadership, because I teach leadership professionally, when I talk about leadership, I'm not just looking at those occupying government offices. You listening, you right where you are, you're a leader. You have to lead yourself first before you can lead others.
Right.
You have to lead your family. You have to lead your business. So if you can't get it right at the micro level, you can't get it right at the macro level.
Since you have mentioned individuals now and the roles that they play in all of this, let's look at the NGOs, because you talked about some people who are displaced and the fact that sometimes in some cases the government waits till there's a situation, maybe like a flooding, a disaster, and that's when you start trying to help people. But we have organizations that do these things. We have organizations that carry out these activities of trying to help people, especially people who are displaced. So let's also look at some of the challenges that they get to face that limits the actual extent that they can go that their program can be effective?
I've worked as a humanitarian for over 10 years, for over a decade, and I've worked across this country and beyond, even in other African countries. And I've worked with different NGOs and organizations, and I'm still involved with many. Most of the NGOs in Nigeria are faced with financing. They have financial challenges. So they are facing financial challenges. They don't have the financial capacity to respond to the challenges or to respond to the needs of the people or to the constituency that they are focused or target communities. And secondly, most of them don't have the professional training and the capacity to respond to emergency situations. And emergency situations like flooding, fire outbreak, and so many of these disasters, most of these NGOs don't even have the facilities to help and assist and work together with the government agencies to respond to those in need at that time. For example, let's look at flooding. Years back, I did a research with a team. We did a survey of a particular community that was affected by floods. And we discovered that emergency response is poor. Like there is no equipped emergency teams that can respond immediately and will not wait for the disaster, like pre-emergency, like before the emergency, at least equipping themselves to respond through trainings. For example, now, you don't need to wait for the next flooding. We should have government agencies like the Ministry of Health, because when there is cases of flooding, there is health issues, cholera outbreak, food security issues, environmental issues, and so many issues that rises up as a result of the flooding. So now the Ministry of Health, the government agencies, the emergency agencies will work together with NGOs. They will not wait for the next flooding. They will be building capacity. They will be having workshops. They will be having seminars. They will also be funding some of these NGOs. They can support them because it's an ecosystem where everyone should work together for the benefit of the society. So NGOs are faced with financial problems, financial challenges, funding issues, capacity building, and most of them are not equipped to respond to emergency situations like we are facing today.
Do you think we have limited number of the NGOs? That could also be a problem.
I don't really think we have limited number of NGOs. Unfortunately, from my expert knowledge working as a humanitarian for over a decade, most of the NGOs we have in Nigeria are political NGOs. Their aim and objectives or their goals is for a political interest. We have more of political NGOs than real core humanitarian NGOs in Nigeria. Many of these NGOs, they have they wear the garment of humanitarian NGOs, but they are political, possibly as a vehicle to drive a particular political interest. And when that politician wins office, that's the end of the NGO. Now they will come to a community and say they want to empower 100 youths, maybe with some microfinance to finance their projects, finance their businesses, or buy them a motorcycle, or buy them a tricycle, or buy them some machines, and they will come under the umbrella of a humanitarian NGO, but they are political NGOs. Why? They are looking for votes. They are not really interested in the welfare of those people. They just want to use them as a stepping stone to the next level. And the next level for most of them is political office. So when the man or the woman gets the political office, that's the end of the NGO. There's no sustainability, there's no continuity, there's no progressive steps taken to ensure that that project survives, right? Many of the other NGOs that we have, some of them are small, and like we have a lot of NGOs even in Port Harcourt that do what we call Paddy Girl. They go to schools and help young girls with sanitary pads for personal hygiene. And I tell you, I've been on the field a lot. Many young girls, many young women, many young ladies are suffering because most of them cannot even afford to buy sanitary pad, or most of them are using some materials that is not safe for their health. Why? Because they can't afford it. go to the pharmacy or to a health center and ask for how much it costs to buy a sanitary pad. It's not affordable to many people who can't even afford 1 square meal a day, right? So the NGOs are playing a huge role in bridging the gap and helping even the government to reach out to many people that are not getting the attention or the necessary materials that they need. But most of them, they don't really have that funding opportunities, right? So they cannot function well.
All right, that's it on the end bad governance story and what the people we can do to make things better for ourselves while we expect the government to do their part. Let's look at this story from Abia State. Reports have it that Abia State government has vowed to recover about 180 public schools illegally ceded to private individuals and entities by the previous administrations in the state. This is as it also announced plans to train about 12,000 teachers in public schools to prepare them for the task of rebuilding the system. We have OK Kanu, State Commissioner for Information, who made this known after the State Executive Council meeting in Umuahia. He stated that a committee has been set up to oversee the recovery efforts. The committee, according to an official statement, will be headed by Caleb Ajaba, Chief of Staff to Governor Alex Oti. It was alleged that the immediate past administration in Abia State allotted a large number of public schools to private persons, mostly political cronies, friends, family members, and faith-based organizations. The allottees, according to sources, have since gone ahead to erect varying structures, including malls, business concerns. Despite public outcry, the development has sadly resulted in a monumental deficit in education sector, with thousands of children of the poor unable to access education. The Commissioner for Information, however, warned that the state government would no longer tolerate the unbridled greed and impunity of a few privileged people with the penchant to illegally appropriate the commonwealth of the people. So they're saying we're taking back those schools, and I'm just imagining what would have happened to the students who are supposed to be in those schools all the while.
Now, I've been a teacher for many years, and my experience, the teaching syllabus and the environment, it helps to shape that child. Now, if you look at the society today, especially our Nigerian society, you see a lot of private schools, a lot. And there's something that is so funny. You always see them with the tag international schools.
Exactly. Don't you think it's because of the finance? But they probably do not have enough to give the school the kind of standard that it requires.
Then don't call it an international school. Why is it international? Do you have kids coming from other countries to study in your
schools? And aside that, who even approved it in the first place?
Now the government is talking about a lot of mushroom schools and schools that have been allocated to friends. See, education is a life, is so delicate and sensitive, like health. You joke with your doctor, you joke with, and build. When your mind is bankrupt, when your intellect is bankrupt, when you are deficient intellectually, when you are not challenged to think for yourself, you become like someone that is a sheep that is led astray. I have seen firsthand how children suffer because I've taught in both public and private schools. And I tell you, it's not so much about from them and make it right. Make it a place where a child will want to come to study and will want to come, they will love to be there because they want to grow, they want to learn.
You know, we all know the
broken and leave it in a worse state. So our educational system is in a very bad shape because those who are responsible to make it right are not interested in making it right. They are interested in making it right for themselves and their kids.
Looking at all of these things that have been happening, do you see our education, the system that we know as education in Nigeria, fading off? Look at JAMB reducing it, and then universities also reducing their cut-off marks because some students cannot afford it. And then having reports of less number of students this time getting into schools because of the ideology of you can also be successful without getting to school. From your analysis, would you say that our education is, the way we see it, is gradually fading off in Nigeria?
It is fading and it is dying. Let's be realistic and let's be honest. To build the universities in Europe, in the United States, in Canada, even in sports, everywhere.
So what exactly is the problem?
Our leadership is the problem. We don't have the right leadership to build our educational system. Apart from the leadership, there is a discontent, and there's a lot of people that are losing interest in education.
Sure.
Because many of them don't understand what education is all about. They think it's just about education. Is not, schooling is just one of the phases. Education is a continuous development. For example, I have a degree in economics and development studies, but I didn't stop there. I didn't just carry my degree and say I have a degree. I learned every day. I develop myself every day. I open up myself to learning in building this country. And as I always say, in renewing hope, we should renew education. I think that's the message for the government. If we want to renew the hope of Nigerians, renew education. And when we talk about education, education is not just building a classroom and a school.
Yes, let's get to it.
It's building a system where young people come in and they walk out of the door and they are thinking about how to solve the next problem or to solve the problems around them. Problem-solving educational system builds the students to not just cram and write, but to think beyond, think outside the box and look at the society, look at their immediate environment.
Which would you say we have? Do we have that?
We don't have it yet. Most of our schools today, if you go, even the science practical, they don't have the basic equipment for science practicals. I'm talking about the basic. Most of the public schools, they don't have a functioning laboratory. I mean a functioning laboratory. Most of the public schools, they don't have functioning ICT computer. Most of the kids, the children, they've only seen computer on TV or on their phones. They've not practiced with computer. They don't know anything about computers. They don't know anything about computer. Most of the public schools, they only learn it theory. Computer is practical.
Even the universities, some of the universities.
Same in the university. They don't have this thing functioning. What is difficult to have?
Even some of the universities that have them, you find it difficult for these students to even be taking them, maybe like once in a blue moon, so they don't destroy the equipment or something. Because I know that I had a guest here yesterday who said he studied agriculture and he actually had a computer course in the university, but they never used the computer in learning. They just, in fact, even writing the course, the exams, they didn't use the computer. They just did all of that with theory.
How do you expect someone who have a theoretical knowledge of computer to be practically efficient and professional in dealing with issues that relates to computer?
All right, I think it will actually start from the curriculum and those actually organizing that, because it takes the teacher to even have that mindset of the problem-solving mindset to then impact it on the students. But let's look at the next story now. We're going to Ondo State. We have reports that women in the Akoko Southwest Council area of Ondo State have staged a peaceful protest half naked to condemn the resurgence of adoptions, killings and other crimes by suspected herdsmen in the community. You'd recall that tension enveloped the community following the gruesome murder of a farmer, Sunday Ayeni, by suspected herdsmen. Farmers in the community have subsequently abandoned their farmlands for fear of attack by rampaging herdsmen. The diseased farm was reportedly destroyed recently by some herdsmen who invaded the farm with their heads. Now, the owners of the cows were reportedly identified and made to pay compensation following the intervention of security agents and leaders in the community. Now, this is what happened according to reports. Irked by the verdict, the herdsmen reportedly mobilized other herdsmen and they came back and attacked the deceased. Now, the lifeless body of that farmer was later discovered where he was gruesomely murdered by search party. But the women during the protest demanded for justice for the victim and an end to herdsmen attacking the community. Now, they stormed the palace of the prominent traditional ruler of the Oka, Olubaka of Oka, Oba, that's Oba Adebori Adeleye, during a security meeting. They stormed his palace half naked and without head ties. Now, responding, the traditional ruler, the Oba Adebori, said that the security situation in the community has already been handled by relevant security agencies in the states. How do you see the response? Let's start from the activity, the action of the herdsmen, down to the protest and down to the Oba's response.
See, if we're talking about this relates to food security. If you want to see the prices of food items in the markets crash, you want to see a reduction in the skyrocketing prices of food, we must deal with this farmer herdsmen conflict. We want to see an improvement in our food production, practical. And we're talking about, oh, the prices of food is going up. What is the solution, right? If we're talking about solution, one of the steps we can take is to deal with the farmer herdsmen conflicts, because it is threatening our food security. People are not secured to access their farms. People are not safe in their farms, and the crops in the farms are not also safe. So having a peaceful dialogue. We've heard so much about this farmer herdsmen conflict for a long time. And
then we're just hearing about it like, oh, it's affecting our food, it's affecting farmers from going. But let's also look at the fact that lives are being lost.
Lives are lost because the root issues, the root causes of the problem are not being tackled.
Exactly. This is no longer just looking like the way it is being portrayed, farmer herders clash. This is a criminal case. This is people going to people's business places and killing them, according to the reports that we get. That is how I believe that is how we should get to look at it. People are going to work, right? We're talking about being idle and not doing the wrong things. People are going to work, and then they are scared because anyone might come in, and that is how the security agencies should get to look at these things.
Do you know one of the reasons why Nigeria is not developed? Why we are still calling ourselves third world country? I'm a development economist and I studied developments across the world. Is because of negative cultural practices that have impeded and slow-paced our development. Tied with some myopic thinking. Because most of our politicians or leaders, they travel around the world. When you travel to other countries, you see their cows being taken from one spot to the other. They have ranching. They have a structured system. I was looking at the statistics of Nigeria's milk production compared to other countries in Europe. Very poor. Yet we have so many cows, millions of cows. But we're importing dairy products, milk, and so many of these things. So if we want to restore and build and make sure that our agricultural system is working, we must look at these hot topics, hot areas that have to do with herdsmen conflict, because there are criminal elements that have disguised themselves as herdsmen and attacking farmers, threatening them in their farms, invading their private spaces, and disrupting food production, food supply, food distribution in the country, threatening the food security of a country of over 200 million people who are now become a hungry nation, impoverished and malnourished because we cannot get our food security right. So if we want to improve our food security, we must take
off these negative cultural practices that can even be tied with religion, that have slow-paced and stalled our development, educate these people. They are critical to the development of the herdsmen. They are critical. They produce meat, leather, milk, dairy products, and so many things. And they can even produce and foreign revenue for the country. They are all critical in the agricultural sector and in food production. But it should be done rightly. We are in the 21st century society, and we are still practicing this moving of cows from one place to the other. But even the cows are not even healthy enough, because by the time you move them from one state to the other, they are worn out and they are tired. Put them in a ranch and give them good feeds. We have a lot of innovative approach that will help them to even produce better milk, there's so much we can learn from other European countries.
Probably that's why the president announced the Ministry of Livestock the other time.
It's not enough to announce Ministry of Livestock. We should look at the issues that we're talking about. What drives conflicts between herdsmen and farmers? It's a research topic that so many researchers have written about. You know, I have a master's in peace, conflict, and security studies, and so many people have done research on farmer-herdsmen conflicts. There should be a collaboration between the academic community and the government and policymakers. Look at what the academic community is doing. Look at the research they are carrying out. You know what pains me and beats my imagination and breaks my heart? That people will suffer and spend a lot of their resources to do research, write research papers, and they will end up in a shelf somewhere, gathering dust.
Well, I was going to ask, we even use our research results?
They are not useful. The recommendations, there should be a collaboration between that's what is happening in other developed countries. Not just people will do research and they will just throw it somewhere. Go and look at the research that people have conducted, surveys that have been carried out, data that have been collected, analyzed, and results that have been discovered on farmer-herdsmen conflict, drivers of conflict between farmers and herdsmen, solutions and recommendations on how we can mitigate this conflict, preventive strategies in dealing with farmer-herdsmen conflict, and how we can have a joint effort in rooting out these protracted issues that have kept us in the dark, so that we stop listening or getting news of people being killed in their farms. For goodness sake, we're in the 21st century.
That is crime. That's crime. Because like we've been discussing this, like I said earlier, I think it should be more than, we should look at it more than just how it's affecting our food security. That's a very serious challenge, because people just protested for hunger, right? Against hunger. If hunger wasn't there, we probably would not have lost the lives of people that we lost during that protest. That's one. So there are ripple effects to actions that are being taken or actions that are not being taken at all.
I think I would just say this very importantly. One of the reasons why we continuously have this farmer-herdsmen conflict is because of impunity. Most of these people who perpetrate or who carry out these violent attacks, they are not dealt with. They are not facing the wrath of the law. They are not facing the consequences of their actions. If 10 of such people are prosecuted, it will serve as a warning to others.
Yeah.
How many of these people who have committed this crime, how many of them are being prosecuted and charged to courts?
True.
How many of them are held accountable for their actions? How many of them? Until the impunity is stopped, you will continue to have the reoccurrence of these killings. You will continue to have this impunity and lawlessness and recklessness and violence.
True, so that it doesn't graduate into something else, where we'd have a full community fighting, you know, another community in the community of herders and all of those. The clash has gone. My heart is going out to all of those people who have lost their loved ones from all of these. Because if we were to collate, you know, we usually do not do that. take data. If we were to collect the number of people that have lost their lives in their farms from these farmers and herders clashes all around Nigeria, it would be so much you would not even believe the number if we would have the actual number of that. So this is something that should actually be critically looked into, and we really do not want to keep seeing stories or cases like this. We'll go on a short break now, and when we return, we'll discuss the other stories we have on our table, on our desk. Please stay with us in ATN. right, we are back. Thank you for staying with us. Let's delve straight to the next story. We have reports that a member of the House of Representatives representing Abeokuta North, Obafemi Odeda Federal Constituency of Ogun State, Honorable Olumide Osoba, has assured Nigerians that the President Bola Tinubu-led federal government is working round the clock to alleviate hardship being faced by Nigerians occasioned by food shortage. Osoba, who gave the assurance at a food support program for members of his constituency, noted that the federal government is aware of the current food crisis in the country, stressing that it would spare no efforts to eradicate hunger in the land. The government is aware that these are tough times and will leave no stone unturned to roll out programs that could help to alleviate the suffering and take care of the people's well-being. He said the federal government and the National Assembly will continue to initiate interventions to ensure that no family in Nigeria goes hungry. According to him, their comprehensive food support program is aimed at alleviating food insecurity and economic hardship in his constituency. The initiative, tagged Community Food Support, has seen the distribution of 1,000 bags of rice to vulnerable households across 38 wards in the constituency. The distribution exercise, which commenced that weekend, has been widely praised by residents and community leaders. You know, when he was talking about food security and the steps that the federal government would take, we were trying to see the steps, and then we saw that bags of rice have been distributed to 38 wards in that community, and then the people, according to reports, have uploaded it. But let's get your thoughts on that.
Albert Einstein is a renowned scientist in the world, but he gave a definition of insanity, and we have a lot to learn from that definition. He said doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a new result is insanity, because your previous approach did not give you a different result and you're repeating it. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a new result. You will continue to have that result based on what you put in, right? And now we talk about alleviating poverty, as the member of the House of Representatives is saying, and then the approach to alleviate poverty is distributing rice. That shows that there is something fundamentally wrong with the way some of our leaders are thinking. That you give a man a bag of rice, you've not alleviated poverty. And where did they even get this theory? Or I don't know, where did they get this from? That when you give somebody rice, you're alleviating his poverty. How does rice distribution how does it lead to poverty alleviation? I think they should show me the research and the data and the statistic that by distributing rice to people, you alleviate them from poverty, or you take them out of poverty, or you have lifted them from the
hunger.
class
That's
of
what they said,
hungry
hunger.
people. That's a wrong approach. It's not working. It's not working because we have seen it for a lot of times. We've seen it. It's not working. Just giving people rice. And why is it rice? Among all the foodstuffs, why is it rice? Why are they so particular? Why are they so specific? Why are they so attached to rice? What is it about rice and poverty? No, I don't know if it could be a research topic.
Maybe it's widely accepted. That's why they cook it in occasions, because it seems like everybody eats.
So when you give people rice, you have taken them out of poverty. Among all the foods that we have, it is rice. They are so particular with rice. I think it should be a research. Maybe I will do a research on it. What is the connection between rice and poverty alleviation in Nigeria? And why is it that our politicians and our leaders are so specific with rice distribution? The question is this. The truth of the matter is that if we want to alleviate poverty, we should build a system that will make small businesses to thrive. Number one, you don't need to distribute rice to people to take them out of poverty. Give a man rice today. Will you give him rice tomorrow? Will you give him rice next week?
How does he even prepare the rice?
Okay, that's a good question. You're giving him rice to cook with what? He can't afford to buy gas.
because gas is expensive.
Come on.
He can't afford to buy the ingredients to prepare the rice. He can't even afford to go to the market because he cannot transport himself from his house to the market. And when he gets to the market, let's say he treks to the market, he can't afford to buy the pepper, for example.
So
pepper is even very
what
expensive.
should we be looking at if we want to, if we're talking about hunger, taking away hunger, what should we really be looking at?
We should stop distributing rice to people. It's an insult to the Nigerian citizen that you give him rice and you tell him you're taking him out of poverty. It's a rice poverty. It is deepening poverty. What we need is these are leaders that are occupying these various offices in the House of Representatives, National Assembly, governors, president. What we need is bold leadership. Number one, make energy affordable for the people. See, Nigerians are not lazy people. Many Nigerians, they are not lazy. Go on the street, walk on the street, see young people hawking, selling. People are selling sachet water. People are selling bottled water. People are walking. These people, are they lazy? Are they lazy people that need you to give them a cup of rice? Are they lazy people that need them to give them a custard of rice? Create opportunities for people. Do they share rice to people on the streets in London, where they go for vacation? Do they share rice to people on the streets in Washington? Yes, they have food support program for the poor, but it is not a poverty alleviation policy that you should give people rice. Make energy affordable. People should have affordable gas. Families should have affordable energy so that they can cut down on deforestation. Most of our trees, we are losing it because poverty is driving people into deforestation. Poverty is driving people into destroying our environmental, our habitat, our mangroves, all the resources we have. We are depleting it. They are exposing ourselves to environmental hazard. And we look at the impact of climate change because of poverty. So when we have affordable energy that people can afford, we are going to reduce poverty. When we have security for people, for the market woman, for the farmer who goes to his farm to harvest his yams and his cassava so that he can produce more. When we have security, we have more food production. When we have the machinery for farmers, tractors, provide these things for the farmers. Provide the technology, right? Train our young people in technology. Empower them with technology. They don't need you to give them rice. Look at so many young people that are doing well today, even without government support. With their phones, they are doing well. Many of them are into tech. Many of them are building software. Many of them are doing a lot in the tech space. They just need the empowerment. And they are earning in dollars. They are earning in foreign currency. Do they need you? Are they waiting for you to give them rice? For goodness sake, do you give your children rice every day in your house? So it's an indictment. When I say a politician or a leader who is distributing rice, it's either he's bankrupt of ideas, he has run out of ideas, or he's living in self-denial, or he doesn't even have any idea.
To even imagine how much of that product gets to the people is another funny case. We've heard cases of people who received 2 cups of the rice. You see, we hear that 1,000 bags were distributed, but when it gets to the people, you start hearing cases of, oh, it was 1 pint for the leader of the community, but for we and the others, we had to get cups of rice. And that is very pathetic, and like you said, most Nigerians have called it an insult to the Nigerian community. Let's look at the next story now. We have reports that the Port Harcourt Refinery Company, that's a refinery under the management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited in River State, has again failed to commence operations after about 6 postponements. It was observed that the promises made to Nigerians by the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources and NNPCL about the refinery have continued to witness multiple failures. Since December 2023, NNPCL, which is in charge of all the government refineries, have given Nigerians different dates, assuring citizens that the refinery will begin the sale of refined products soon. In July, the Group Chief Executive Officer of the NNPCL, Mele Kari, stated categorically that the refinery would come into operation in early August, that's this month. The same Kari said in 2019 that the NNPCL would deliver, that's NNPC as it then, would deliver all the country's 4 refineries before the end of the former President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Now, while appearing before the Senate just recently in July, Kerry boasted that he can confirm that, in his words, I can confirm to you, Mr. Chairman, that by the end of the year, this country would be a net exporter of petroleum products. Specific to NNPCL refineries, we have spoken to a number of your committees, and it is impossible to have the Kaduna refinery come into operation before December. But in his words, it will get to December. But both Warri and Kaduna, but that of Port Harcourt will commence productions in early August. However, as August nears midpoint, today is what, 14th, the refinery is yet to commence operations. And this has created concerns that might be another failed promise from the NNPCL. Now, we had a replying to these inquiries from newsmen on Tuesday. The NNPCL has said that it was on course, even when the early August promise has already expired. In the chat with newsmen, the NNPCL spokesperson Olufemi Soneye tersely replied, "We are on course." That was all he said about the question that was asked. Even though further questions were asked, he didn't give a reply to that.
Big talk without big action is an empty suitcase. If you're a man that talks big, but you don't back it up with action, you're just carrying an empty suitcase around. So big talk without big action. Your big talk should be backed with big action. Everybody can talk big. A lot of people, they are big talkers. They even talk so much about what they want to achieve. But you can talk so much about what you want to achieve. If you don't back it up with the right action at the right time, you will continue to miss, you will continue to lose, and you continue to fail. See, failure is a product of your actions and inactions. Now, the NNPC is in this same studio. I've talked about, I hope that they meet up the deadlines. They've been setting deadlines, and they failed many times. There's nothing wrong in failing, but you learn from your failure.
Let's look at this now. This is a promise that has been made year in, year out, right? It did just begin in 2023. That's last year. It didn't just begin last year, because I hosted shows where I took his stories, the stories where Melekari stated this, and we had hope. I analyzed it with guests. We were hoping that deadline was not, the promise was not kept. Again, we started over again. So we have been following up this process. Now, what can we do? This is beginning to look like an insult to Nigerians, because this is something that Nigerians are looking up to, they are looking forward to, and we know definitely that if those refineries are functional and we are producing in required capacity, most of the issues, even the talk of hunger, would not even be there. So what do you think can be done at this moment? We're no longer looking at this as a joke. This is beginning to look like an insult.
There must be a reason why the refineries are not working.
So why are we not being told?
The truth
when the deadline is not met, why are we not having, Melekari come talk to us and say, oh, this is, I know I said this, but this is the reason. We have never had that.
If we are in a civilized society, we always describe ourselves as giant of Africa, but we're not doing things in a civilized way. What makes you a civilized person? Or what makes you a responsible person? You see, responsibility is being accountable for your actions. When you fail, you must give reasons. Now, these people have failed many times. They've been saying, we're going to fix the refinery. Does it take a magic wand to fix our refineries? And if it does, why are other refineries in other countries, even in Africa, in other African countries, why are they functioning? And what is stopping our refineries? What is stopping them from functioning? What is hampering or limiting them? It's not ghosts or spirits. They are human beings. And those human beings are not far. They are in this. Those human beings will be, when the refineries are not functioning and they keep telling you we're going to fix it and they're not meeting up the deadline. If it's a civilized society, those people ought to have resigned their offices. They ought to have resigned, honorably resigned.
The truth is there are some people that might be benefiting from the failures of the refineries. So they will not want the refineries to work because they are benefiting from, you know, we've heard so many people talk about that there's a cabal or there's this, there's that. There are some people, see, anytime there is a dark situation, there's some people that benefit from it. Anytime there is conflict, there are people who benefit from it. So the beneficiaries will want the people to be enslaved. See, Nigerians are enslaved. This is slavery, modern day slavery. And until we emancipate our mind from mental slavery, we'll continue to have this reoccurring. We're going to fix the refinery today. We're going to fix the refinery tomorrow. It's becoming, if a woman is pregnant, you expect that after 9 months she will deliver. She'll give birth. She'll be delivered of the baby. And if she has carried the baby for a year or for 2 years, you'll be worried.
All right. That's the state where a lot of Nigerians are at the moment, and that's why that was one of the demands of the protesters, the End Bad Governance protesters, where they talked about fixing the refineries, and we haven't really heard anything concerning that except Melekari's promise, which is already looking like, for the Port Harcourt refinery, we've passed the early days of August. But let's look at the next story, talking about telecom operators. They warned that the excruciating financial obligations the sector is providing telecom services in the country. But the regulator, the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, in a swift reaction, said it would not be arm-twisted by the operator's threat. Now, addressing concern about dilapidating telecom services in the country, the chairman of the umbrella body of telcos, Engineer Benga Adebayo, disclosed that an event put together by the Financial Derivatives Company, FDC, titled Telecom Industry 2.0, the next investment frontier in Nigeria, saying the country's economic woes have impacted the telcos so badly to the extent that they might not be able to service all their facilities at the same time. Adebayo said the point at which telcos have found themselves at the moment is where they could only service a part of their facilities at a time. That means meaning that the area they are able to service will enjoy better services, while other areas that are not so lucky at that particular time may just have to bear the epileptic services. I think I've been in those areas that are not so lucky recently because the network has been something else. The question to ask is why has government found it difficult to take advantage of different advocacies to sustain a healthy telecom sector, despite these advocates coming from verified data and indices? The behavior of those that suspended over government agencies is poor and not causing progress. Remember that when the operator signed an agreement to provide telecom services in the country in 2001, the part the Nigerian government signed, now I want you to listen to this part, was to provide 18 hours of power supply to these operators. That's what we signed in 2001. We promised, we signed it, it was an agreement that we will provide 18 hours of power supply to these operators. And it's looking like we're not keeping our part. And that's why the operators are coming out now to say this is what's going on and our tariffs have to go up. Nigerians will be the ones to suffer for this.
You see, bad leadership have consequences for economic developments. There are so many consequences as it affects our economy. The telecommunication industry in Nigeria, like other sectors or other industries, they are facing the same negative impacts of poor infrastructure. So these are the areas that the government officials and our leaders should be focused on, not sharing bag of rice. Provide affordable power supply. Now, you from the reports, many areas will suffer, and they are suffering. I am living in an area where we are suffering it too. My phone, if you call my line, it will tell you that my network is not available, but I'm available. But they are telling you that the network, the person you are calling is not available.
Yesterday was something else. I
am available, but my number is always not available because there is no available leadership to correct the abnormalities in our telecommunication industry. And there's particularly no meaningful development that can take place without technology. You saw what happened with the crowd strike also, something that affected many countries. Just a day of internet shutdown. Airlines canceled their flights. Businesses shut down.
Millions were lost.
Billions, not even millions, of revenue was lost across the world, all over the world, because of one day of internet disruption. It is vital to security. So look at Nigeria, that we have a lot of potentials in the telecommunication and in the tech space. We cannot even compete because we don't even have the service. Our young people that are surviving today because of their technological skill and their tech skills, we are even putting them out, we are even creating more joblessness. Because many young people that are not employed, it is through tech, it is through software development that they are feeding themselves and their families. Because the government have not provided jobs. They have created jobs for themselves. And now there is no service, there's no internet availability. Why? Because there's no leadership availability. There's no service in somebody's phone because there's no service of leadership. So these are the core fundamental areas that the leader should be looking at. How do we work together to build reliable energy? It is not difficult. It is not out of place. We have a lot of rivers. We could have hydropower. We could have small dams to provide electricity and power homes. We have wind. We have renewable energy. We have sun. Go to the north. What is the sun? We are just wasting the sun, crying for heat. Other countries are tapping into the sun and providing energy. We, the sun, we are roasting because we don't even have there's no power. You are suffering from heat. The heat is disturbing you. The environment is uncomfortable. How can you think right? That's why many Nigerians are tense. See, Nigeria is a case study of mental health. When you go to study mental health, because a lot of people are tense. You are coming back from work, there is no power supply, there is no power availability. First, even in your office, there is no power supply. Back home, there is no power supply, and there is heat. And God has given us sun. Why are we disturbing God with our prayers? God, for those of us who are Christians, the Bible says, let there be light, and there was light. But in Nigeria, we refuse to obey what God said. God said, let there be light. In Nigeria, we refuse to give ourselves light. Because God will not come down and build dams for us. A country like South Africa, they are producing more power than we. A country of South Africa with their population, we are more populated than South Africa. They have reliable power. Ghana, I'm going too far. Benin Republic, next door neighbor, they have reliable power supply. Togo, all these small African countries, they have reliable power supply.
They're even going too far. Reports have it that we're even giving power to some of these countries.
So is that not part of the insanity?
Funny part of it. Thank you so much, Dema, for your thoughts on the show. We appreciate you flying down, because you literally flew down here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this is where we get to wrap things up. I must thank my team. I must thank Williams behind the camera and Samuel. Thank you so much for doing this with me. Remember that we are open for sponsorship and partnerships. Stay connected with us on all of our socials, on Facebook and YouTube, on Atlantic Television Network, on Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, and on X at Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Always have it in mind that peace and unity, the pathways to progress. Thank you once again for watching. I am Enidoye Jackson. Coming up next is Open Conversation. Please stay with us.